Judge Judy had heard people accuse one another of lying, cheating, stealing, and manipulating the truth for decades. She had watched families fall apart over inheritances, neighbors wage wars over fences, and business partners destroy lifelong friendships over contracts. But on this particular afternoon, the entire courtroom froze when the defendant pushed her chair back, pointed toward the bench, and declared loudly enough for everyone to hear, "You're only ruling against me because you're racist." The room went completely silent. No one whispered. No one shifted in their seat. Even the bailiff instinctively glanced toward Judge Judy, waiting to see how she would respond. Judge Judy didn't interrupt. She didn't defend herself. She didn't even blink. Instead, she calmly reached toward a sealed envelope resting beside the court clerk and placed one hand on top of it without opening it. That single movement changed the atmosphere inside the courtroom. The defendant, Karen Mitchell, believed she had cornered the judge with a shocking accusation that would dominate the hearing. She had no idea that less than a minute later, the evidence inside that envelope would expose something far more damaging than any accusation she had just made, because Judge Judy wasn't interested in arguing with claims. She was interested in facts. Pay close attention to what happened next, because this wasn't the moment Judge Judy became defensive. It was the moment she quietly allowed the truth to begin defending itself. Before this story goes any deeper, make sure you're subscribed for more unforgettable courtroom stories like this. If you haven't subscribed yet, now's the perfect time. And tell us in the comments where you're watching from, because this courtroom battle is about to take a turn nobody inside that room expected. Judge Judy had spent years learning that people often make their biggest mistake when they believe outrage can replace evidence. Real injustice deserves serious examination. False accusations used as a strategy usually reveal themselves through contradictions. Bodies confess before mouths do. While everyone else focused on Karen's explosive accusation, Judge Judy noticed something entirely different. Karen's eyes weren't fixed on the judge. They kept returning to the courtroom monitor mounted on the wall. Just for a fraction of a second, then away again. Experienced judges understand that people rarely fear ordinary screens. They fear what those screens might soon display. Across the courtroom sat the plaintiff, David Reynolds, a middle school teacher who looked exhausted rather than angry. His suit had clearly seen better days, and beside him rested a worn canvas briefcase with neatly organized folders inside. He wasn't searching for revenge. He looked like someone who had spent months trying to clear his name. The lawsuit appeared ordinary on paper. Karen, the owner of a local consulting business, claimed David had publicly defamed her online after a disagreement over a community scholarship fundraiser. According to Karen, she was the victim of discrimination, harassment, and unfair treatment because of comments David allegedly made during the dispute. The claim sounded serious. But Judge Judy had already noticed something unsettling. Karen spent far more time attacking people's motives than explaining the facts. When someone cannot strengthen their evidence, they often try to weaken everyone else's credibility. That wasn't proof, it was strategy. Judge Judy quietly opened the case file. She reviewed one page before asking the clerk to confirm the date attached to a digital exhibit. Karen smiled confidently. She assumed the judge was looking for something that didn't exist. What Karen didn't realize was that the exhibit wasn't being verified to support David's story. It was being verified to test Karen's next answer. And hidden inside that sealed envelope was a certified transcript connected to a series of public comments Karen herself had posted months before this lawsuit ever began. The courtroom didn't know it yet. But the woman who had just accused Judge Judy of racism on live television was only moments away from discovering that the hardest evidence to escape is often evidence created by your own words. The accusation echoed through the courtroom long after. Karen stopped speaking. Most people expected Judge Judy to react immediately. She didn't. She had spent decades learning that explosive accusations often create one purpose above all else: to distract everyone from the evidence. Real victims usually want answers. Manipulative people often want attention. Judge Judy quietly turned one page inside the case file before looking toward the plaintiff. David Reynolds stood slowly. He didn't look like someone preparing for a fight. He looked like someone who had been carrying the weight of a false accusation for far too long. His navy suit had been pressed carefully that morning, but the sleeves showed years of wear. Resting beside him was a faded canvas briefcase with a broken zipper that had been stitched together by hand. Judge Judy noticed it immediately. People protect different things. Some protect expensive appearances. Others protect the truth. David opened the briefcase carefully. Every document inside was arranged in clear plastic sleeves. Each page was labeled. Each email was dated. Each receipt sat exactly where it belonged. The organization wasn't impressive because it looked professional. It was impressive because it looked necessary. People forced to defend their integrity often become meticulous. David cleared his throat. "Your Honor, I never wanted to be here." His voice remained calm. "My wife kept telling me to let it go." He paused. "But after she accused me publicly of racism, parents started questioning whether I should still be teaching their children." The courtroom grew noticeably quieter. "This lawsuit isn't about money." He looked down briefly. "It's about getting my name back." Judge Judy nodded. That sentence mattered. Some lawsuits chase compensation. Others chase dignity. This one belonged to the second category. Karen immediately rolled her eyes. "Oh, please," she laughed quietly. "He's playing the victim because it's working." Judge Judy didn't acknowledge the interruption. She allowed David to continue. "For 17 years," he said, "I've taught history at Lincoln Middle School." He removed a folded letter from the briefcase. It wasn't a legal document. It was handwritten. "The principal gave me this after my first year." Judge Judy accepted it. The paper had yellowed slightly with age. Across the top were the words, "Thank you for making every student feel welcome in your classroom." Judge Judy read silently, then handed it back. The narrator understood why that letter mattered. Character is rarely proven by one dramatic moment. It's revealed through years of consistent behavior. David reached into another folder. This time he removed several photographs, field trips, graduation ceremonies. School science fairs. Students from dozens of different backgrounds stood smiling beside him in every picture. He wasn't presenting them as legal proof. He was showing the life he had spent nearly 2 decades building. Karen laughed again. "A scrapbook?" She folded her arms. "This is a courtroom." David didn't answer. Judge Judy did. "No," she said calmly. "It's evidence of reputation." Silence filled the room. Judge Judy continued. "When someone accuses another person of prejudice, reputation becomes relevant." Karen's confident smile faded slightly. Only slightly, but Judge Judy noticed. Experienced judges know that confidence begins disappearing long before panic becomes visible. The narrator could almost feel the courtroom changing. Moments earlier, this looked like an ordinary defamation lawsuit. Now it felt much deeper. David wasn't simply defending himself against harsh words. He was defending 17 years of trust earned one student at a time. Judge Judy turned another page. "The timeline interests me." She looked toward Karen. "You stated that Mr. Reynolds publicly attacked you first." Karen answered immediately. "That's exactly what happened." Judge Judy nodded. "And you're certain?" "Absolutely. Without hesitation. Without uncertainty." Judge Judy made a small note in the margin of the file. Timing matters in a courtroom. Truth usually survives repetition. False stories often become more fragile each time they're told. The narrator noticed something almost no one else saw. Karen had stopped looking at Judge Judy. Instead, her eyes drifted back toward the courtroom monitor for the third time. That tiny movement lasted less than a second, but Judge Judy had already noticed it. because the certified transcript inside the sealed envelope wasn't the only evidence waiting to appear on that screen. Somewhere inside the court's digital exhibit folder, there was a video clip Karen had completely forgotten existed. And once the courtroom saw it, the accusation that had shaken the room would begin collapsing under the weight of Karen's own words. Judge Judy didn't ask another question right away. She simply watched Karen. Experienced judges know that testimony begins long before the next answer. A person's posture often changes before their story does. Real confidence relaxes. Manufactured confidence becomes rigid. Karen Mitchell sat perfectly still, too still. Only an hour earlier, she had entered the courtroom with the polished confidence of someone who believed she already controlled the outcome. Her tailored blazer, expensive leather portfolio, and carefully rehearsed smile projected success before she spoke a single word. That image wasn't accidental. Karen had spent years building a public reputation as a community leader. She served on nonprofit fundraising committees, appeared in local television interviews, and frequently posted motivational videos online about inclusion, equality, and standing up against discrimination. Her public image was carefully crafted. And until that afternoon, very few people had questioned it. The narrator understood something the courtroom was only beginning to realize. Sometimes the strongest mask is the one people applaud. According to Karen, David Reynolds had launched an online campaign against her after she refused to approve his proposal for a local scholarship fundraiser. She insisted that his criticism had encouraged others to harass her business. Then she made the accusation that stunned everyone. He targeted me because of race. The words carried enormous weight. Judge Judy understood that accusations of discrimination must always be treated seriously. Real prejudice causes real harm, but serious accusations demand serious evidence. They cannot become courtroom weapons. Karen continued speaking confidently. People believed him immediately. She pointed toward David. He destroyed my reputation. Judge Judy quietly looked through the exhibits already submitted into evidence. Karen noticed. She mistook silence for uncertainty. That became her next mistake. She leaned forward. "You know, Your Honor." Her voice carried a hint of mockery. "People from your generation don't always understand these issues." The courtroom froze. Nobody moved. Even Karen's attorney slowly turned toward her. He hadn't expected those words. Judge Judy didn't react. She simply looked at Karen over the top of her reading glasses. The narrator could almost feel the atmosphere tighten. Karen believed she was strengthening her argument. Instead, she had revealed exactly how she viewed anyone who challenged her. People trying to prove facts usually answer questions. People trying to control the room usually attack the people asking them. Judge Judy calmly closed the file. "Mrs. Mitchell," Karen smiled. "Yes, you've testified that Mr. Reynolds began publicly attacking you on May 18th. That's correct. And you're certain that was the first public statement made by either of you?" Karen answered immediately. 100%. Judge Judy nodded once. No emotion, no raised voice, only one quiet sentence. "I appreciate certainty." Karen smiled even wider. She believed the question had gone exactly as planned. She had absolutely no idea that Judge Judy wasn't testing David's timeline. She was testing hers. The narrator noticed another detail. Karen hadn't looked at David once during her testimony. Not once. She kept addressing the audience. The cameras, the gallery. Experienced judges recognized that behavior immediately. People speaking the truth usually focus on the person involved. People performing usually focus on everyone else. Judge Judy turned toward the clerk. "Please bring me Exhibit 12. The clerk handed her a slim digital evidence folder. Karen's attorney suddenly leaned toward his client. "What exactly is Exhibit 12? Karen frowned. I don't remember." That was the first honest answer she'd given all afternoon. Judge Judy placed the folder beside the courtroom monitor controls. She didn't open it. Not yet. Timing matters. Truth doesn't become stronger because it's revealed quickly. It becomes stronger because it arrives after every escape has already disappeared. Karen shifted in her chair for the first time. Her breathing became slightly uneven. She recognized the exhibit number. She simply couldn't remember what was inside it. Judge Judy looked directly at her. "Mrs. Mitchell," Karen swallowed. "Yes?" "You've now repeated your timeline 3 separate times." Karen nodded cautiously. "I have. Good." Judge Judy rested one hand on the monitor remote, because the next exhibit wasn't created by Mr. Reynolds. She paused. "It wasn't created by this court." Another pause. "It wasn't even discovered during this lawsuit." Karen's confident expression began to fade. Judge Judy's voice remained calm. "It was broadcast live." She looked briefly toward the courtroom monitor. "On local television." Karen's face lost its color. Her attorney slowly lowered his pen onto the table. He already knew. Whatever appeared on that screen next would not be something he could explain away. Judge Judy didn't press the button immediately. She rested her hand on the remote and looked directly at Karen, not with anger, with patience. There is a difference. People who tell the truth usually want evidence to appear as quickly as possible. People hiding behind a story often fear whatever comes next. Karen tried to regain control. "This is becoming a media circus," she scoffed. "A television clip doesn't prove racism didn't happen." Judge Judy nodded once. "Correct." Karen looked relieved. "It doesn't." The courtroom seemed to exhale. For a brief second, Karen believed she had survived. Then Judge Judy added quietly, "But it can prove whether someone is telling this court the truth." The relief disappeared from Karen's face. The narrator understood exactly what had happened. Judge Judy hadn't disagreed. She had narrowed the issue. This case was no longer about opinions. It was about chronology. It was about who spoke first and who changed the story afterward. Before the truth appears on that screen, tell us in the comments, what do you think Judge Judy is about to reveal? Or, if you already believe honesty always leaves a trail, comment *justice below. Because the next 60 seconds changed everything inside that courtroom. Judge Judy pressed the button. The courtroom monitor came to life. A local television station logo appeared in the corner of the screen. The timestamp showed it had been recorded nearly 3 weeks before David Reynolds ever made a public statement. Karen's attorney leaned forward. His eyes narrowed. "I've never seen this." Judge Judy answered without looking up. "It was obtained directly from the station's archived broadcast." The interview began. Karen appeared on the screen, smiling confidently as she promoted the community scholarship fundraiser. Everything looked normal for the first minute. Then the interviewer asked an unexpected question. "What do you think about the volunteers who questioned the financial reports?" Karen laughed, not nervously, dismissively. The courtroom watched in complete silence. On the screen, Karen said, "Some people always need an excuse when they aren't chosen. They call everything unfair because they can't accept that other people are simply better qualified." Judge Judy paused the video. She turned toward Karen. "Mr. Reynolds was one of those volunteers, correct?" Karen hesitated. "Yes, and this interview occurred before you claim he ever criticized you publicly?" Karen shifted in her chair. I suppose." Judge Judy nodded. "So your testimony that he attacked you first is already inconsistent with this recording." Karen quickly interrupted. "I wasn't talking about him." Judge Judy didn't argue. Instead, she reached for another document, a printed transcript highlighted in yellow. "You continued speaking?" She handed the transcript to the clerk. The highlighted paragraph appeared on the courtroom monitor. Karen's smile on the television screen widened as she continued answering the reporter. "I've learned that some people hide behind accusations instead of accountability. If anyone calls me unfair, I'll make sure the whole community knows exactly who they are." Judge Judy let the words linger. Then she asked one simple question. "When you made that statement," she looked directly at Karen, "who were you referring to?" Karen looked toward her attorney. For the first time all afternoon, He had no advice, no note, no interruption. Only silence. Karen swallowed. I don't remember. Judge Judy calmly folded the transcript. She opened another page inside the evidence file, because less than 24 hours after this interview aired, she placed a printed screenshot beside the transcript. You published a social media post naming Mr. Reynolds. Karen's breathing noticeably changed. The screenshot appeared on the monitor. The date matched perfectly. So did the account name, and beneath Karen's public post, hundreds of comments, some supportive, some cruel, some accusing David Reynolds of being racist. Judge Judy didn't speak for several seconds. She didn't need to. The evidence had begun climbing the ladder. The television interview created doubt. The social media timeline created tension. But Judge Judy hadn't revealed the most devastating piece yet. She slowly reached for the sealed envelope that had remained untouched. Since Karen first shouted her accusation, Karen's eyes widened. She recognized it immediately. Because inside that envelope wasn't someone else's opinion. It wasn't an edited television clip. It wasn't David Reynolds' evidence. It contained Karen Mitchell's own verified comments, posted under her real account, where she had written words she never imagined would be read aloud in open court. Judge Judy rested the sealed envelope on the bench without opening it. No one in the courtroom moved. Karen's confident posture had disappeared. The woman who had walked in accusing everyone else of prejudice now stared at the envelope as though she already knew what it contained. She wasn't afraid of what someone else had said. She was afraid of what she had written. Judge Judy broke the seal with deliberate precision. Inside was a certified transcript prepared directly from Karen's verified public social media account, authenticated by the platform's records and accompanied by archived screenshots. She handed the first page to the clerk. The courtroom monitor changed once again. Karen's attorney leaned closer. "What is this?" Judge Judy answered calmly. "Posts made by your client under her own account." Karen immediately objected. "Those were taken out of context." Judge Judy looked at her. "Perhaps." She nodded. "Let's examine the context together." The narrator understood exactly what Judge Judy was doing. Truth doesn't fear context. Only deception does. The first post appeared on the monitor. It had been published the evening before David Reynolds made a single public comment. Karen had written, "If certain people don't get their way, they immediately play the victim. I know exactly how to deal with people like that." Judge Judy folded her hands. "Mrs. Mitchell, who were you referring to?" Karen hesitated. "I don't remember." Judge Judy made a small note. Then she revealed the second post. This one had been published the very next morning. It included David Reynolds' full name. Karen had written, "Don't let people like him fool you. He'll say anything to make himself look innocent." The courtroom remained silent. Judge Judy asked another simple question. "Was Mr. Reynolds the first person publicly identified in this dispute?" Karen's lips parted. No answer came, because the answer was already glowing on the courtroom monitor. "Yes," Judge Judy said quietly. "He was." Karen's attorney slowly removed his glasses. His shoulders dropped. He had spent the entire hearing believing he was defending a client who had reacted to an attack. Now the timeline showed something completely different. Karen had started the public campaign herself. But Judge Judy wasn't finished. She removed one final certified page from the envelope. Unlike the others, this one wasn't highlighted. It didn't need to be. Judge Judy slid it toward the clerk. The monitor refreshed. Several comments appeared beneath Karen's original post. Community members had begun criticizing David, some repeated accusations. Others questioned whether he should be allowed to continue teaching. Then Karen herself had replied. Her verified account clearly showed the response. "People like him always hide behind fake kindness. They shouldn't be trusted around our children." A collective gasp swept through the courtroom. David closed his eyes. For months, those words had followed him everywhere. Parents had questioned him. Students had heard rumors. His school district had opened an internal review because of the public backlash. Judge Judy looked toward Karen. "You testified that Mr. Reynolds destroyed your reputation." She paused. "The evidence shows something very different." Karen's voice trembled. I was angry." Judge Judy remained composed. "Anger explains emotion." She leaned forward slightly. "It does not excuse false statements." The narrator could see the entire case transforming. At first, it appeared to be a dispute over harsh words. Now it had become something much deeper. Karen hadn't merely defended herself. She had publicly attached accusations of racism to an innocent man before he ever responded. Then she came into court and repeated the same claim under oath. People often believe repeating a lie makes it stronger. In reality, repetition only creates more opportunities for the truth to expose it. Karen suddenly began crying, not loudly, quickly. Her carefully rehearsed confidence had completely collapsed. "I never thought it would go this far," Judge Judy answered without hesitation. "It went this far the moment you chose accusation over evidence." The courtroom sat in absolute silence. Judge Judy slowly closed the transcript. She looked at David, then back at Karen. "The court has heard enough." Karen lowered her head. Her attorney didn't speak. He couldn't. Because the most damaging witness against his client had never entered the courtroom. It had been Karen's own words. Judge Judy reached for her notes one final time. The verdict was no longer uncertain. It was inevitable. Judge Judy looked across the courtroom one final time. Nobody spoke. The gallery sat frozen, not because they were waiting for a dramatic speech, but because the evidence had already answered every important question. The television interview, the certified social media archive, the verified timeline, Karen's own admissions. Each piece had built upon the last until the truth stood alone. Judge Judy quietly closed the evidence folder. She folded her hands. "Mrs. Mitchell." Karen slowly looked up. Moments earlier, she had accused Judge Judy of racism in front of everyone watching. Now she could barely maintain eye contact. "You came into this courtroom asking me to believe that your reputation was destroyed by someone else's prejudice." Judge Judy paused. "The evidence proves something entirely different." Karen lowered her head. "You publicly identified Mr. Reynolds before he ever made a statement." Judge Judy continued. "You encouraged people to question his character." She glanced toward the courtroom monitor. "You implied he should not be trusted around children." David looked down at his hands. Judge Judy noticed. "So let's be perfectly clear." She looked directly at Karen. "You did not respond to public accusations. You created them." The courtroom remained silent. Judge Judy turned toward David. "Mr. Reynolds." He looked up. "For 17 years, you built a professional reputation one classroom at a time." She held up the handwritten letter from his principal. "People trusted you because of your actions." Then she held up the certified transcript. And within days, that trust was placed in doubt because someone decided an accusation was easier than the truth. David nodded quietly. He wasn't emotional because of the legal victory. He was emotional because someone with authority had finally spoken the truth out loud. Judge Judy announced her decision. "Judgment is entered in favor of the defendant on all claims." She paused before continuing. "On Mr. Reynolds' counterclaim for defamation, this court awards damages for the documented harm to his professional reputation, legal expenses, and emotional distress caused by knowingly false public statements." Karen closed her eyes. But Judge Judy wasn't finished. She placed the certified transcript beside the television interview. "This record shall also be made available for any appropriate professional or civil review concerning the public statements made under the defendant's verified account." Karen's attorney slowly exhaled. He knew what that meant. The financial judgment was significant, but the lasting damage to Karen's credibility would be even greater. Judge Judy looked directly at Karen one final time. Then she delivered the line that everyone in the courtroom would remember long after the case ended. Real justice begins the moment evidence replaces outrage and every person is judged by facts instead of accusations. Asterisk, no one applauded. Justice rarely needs applause, it only needs the truth. David quietly placed the old handwritten letter back inside his worn briefcase. He carefully zipped it closed. The narrator understood why. That letter had survived years because it reminded him who he really was. Today, the courtroom had restored something even more valuable. His name. Karen remained seated long after the hearing ended. The cameras captured her leaving through a side hallway without speaking to reporters. The same confidence she had carried into court was gone. Within 24 hours, the televised hearing spread rapidly across local news and social media, not because of Karen's accusation, but because the evidence had completely reversed the narrative. Within 48 hours, David's school district released a statement confirming that its internal review had found no evidence supporting the accusations made against him. Community members, parents, and former students publicly shared stories describing him as one of the most respected teachers they had ever known. Within 72 hours, several organizations quietly removed Karen from leadership roles connected to community programs, explaining that trust and accountability were essential to public service. The greatest consequence wasn't the financial judgment. It was the loss of credibility she had once used as her greatest strength. The narrator reflected on what made this courtroom battle unforgettable. This case was never about silencing someone who raised a serious concern. Claims of discrimination deserve careful attention and honest investigation. What this courtroom rejected was something different. It rejected the use of a life-changing accusation as a weapon against an innocent person. Judge Judy never dismissed the allegation because it was uncomfortable. She examined it because it was serious. And when the evidence revealed that the accusation had been knowingly misused, she protected the very principle Karen had tried to exploit. Truth is too important to become a strategy. A false accusation doesn't strengthen justice. It weakens the voices of those who truly need to be heard. As David walked down the courthouse steps, he didn't celebrate. He simply smiled, adjusted the strap on his worn briefcase, and walked toward his car knowing that his students, his colleagues, and his community would once again know him for who he had always been. Sometimes the most powerful verdict isn't the money awarded. Sometimes it's the moment an honest person's name is finally returned to them. If this story reminded you that facts matter, evidence matters, and integrity always outlasts arrogance, don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more unforgettable courtroom stories, and share it with someone who believes justice begins with the truth. And tell us in the comments, at what exact moment did you realize Karen's own words would decide the entire case?